Hey guys, tonight we're bundling up and heading across the frozen grasslands of Central Asia, where the wind never stops whispering and the stars seem just a little too close for comfort. You're trudging beside a caravan of shaggy horses, the air so cold it snaps your nostrils shut. There's a low hill ahead and tucked into its leeward side, a small round structure with smoke curling from the top. That, my friend, is your bed for the night. The yurt, technically called a jur by Mongolians, isn't exactly Hilton grade, but it has something the Hilton never quite mastered: keeping a human alive in 40 degrees winters using nothing but wool, felt, and a very optimistic fire. You duck your head, step inside, and immediately feel like you've entered a completely different world, one that smells faintly of boiled mutton and yak butter, but also, miraculously, warmth. You probably won't survive this if you try it yourself, not without a good pair of goat hair socks and some serious fire starting skills. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle closer to the low-burning stove at the center of the yurt. It's just a rusty iron cylinder, really, with a pipe poking up through the roof, exhaling gentle plumes into the pink dusk. But it's the beating heart of the home. Your hands extend instinctively, drawn by the heat and the comforting, crackling rhythm of burning dung. Yes, dung. Specifically dried cow or yak dung. It's not glamorous, but it's available and surprisingly efficient. And on the steppe, where trees are scarce and the nearest charcoal is several days' ride away, cow patties become treasure. There's even a particular pride among families for how finely they dry their dung discs, stacked like pancakes in neat towers outside the yurt, catching the sun and the dry wind. A small girl, no more than 6, wanders past and tosses in another disc. She doesn't flinch at the smell. Neither do you after a few minutes. Your nose adapts, or gives up. The felt-covered interior muffles the howl of wind, and everything is cast in a golden glow from the stove's flame. Around you, family members settle into sheepskin pads, drinking salty milk tea and chatting lazily in soft tones. It's almost hypnotic, like watching firelight flicker behind eyelids. Historians still argue whether the circular design of the yurt evolved purely for practicality, resistance to the wind, efficient heat circulation, or if it also had symbolic roots. Some say the circle represented the eternal sky, a spiritual geometry aligning humans with nature. Others suggest the design simply helped avoid corners where the cold could linger. But when you're sitting here, hunched over a steaming bowl of something murky but warm, you don't care much about academic disputes. You care that you're not freezing. You care that the walls aren't shaking even though the wind outside is strong enough to knock down an unsecured ox. The walls themselves are a marvel of quiet engineering. They're made of latticed wood, kana, stretchable like an accordion. The wood is often willow or birch, flexible but strong. It folds up like a magic trick when the family moves, but when locked into place and covered in felt, it forms a drum-tight circle that can stand up to some of the worst weather on Earth. One man, the father perhaps, rises and adjusts a flap of felt near the door, tucking it under a rope. This simple action fine-tunes the airflow. They've been doing this for over 1,000 years. No vents, no smart thermostat, just the intuition of people who live by watching the clouds and listening to the grass. And still, even with the warmth, you notice something curious. There's no firewood stacked up, no coal, just sacks of dried animal matter, some roots, and a bucket with what suspiciously looks like fish residue. In some parts of Mongolia where fishing is more accessible than farming, dried fish oil is used like candle wax, smoky, but effective. You sip the milk tea, trying not to make a face. It's salty, fermented, oddly comforting. They say the calcium content alone could keep your teeth intact through 3 famines. There's a hush now. Someone outside ties down the last guy rope, and the wind seems to retreat a little. It's just you, the stove, and the gentle murmur of sleeping breath. You lay back on your woolen mat, gazing upward at the roof ring, an opening to the stars that also acts like the room's lung. Through it, you glimpse constellations flickering in the deep sky, like slow Morse code from the past. And still, you're warm. Not toasty exactly, but wrapped in a pocket of stillness and survival that feels ancient and deeply human. The fire lets out a soft pop, and someone shifts in their sleep, pulling a sheepskin tighter. You close your eyes. The yurt creaks, but it doesn't shiver. It's breathing, like you. A small shelter, surrounded by a million miles of nothing, and still standing. You wake, not that you were fully asleep, more in a sort of wool-lined twilight, to the low grunt of a camel and the clink of metal somewhere outside. The yurt is dim now, the embers in the stove glowing gently like sleepy fireflies. A woman nearby is moving quietly, layering felt panels back into place along the wall with such practiced grace you almost don't notice. The walls themselves, what you now realize are the bones of the yurt, are deceptively delicate looking. Thin wooden slats, curved and interlaced in a diamond pattern, make up the collapsible frame. The Mongolians call this latticework kana, and it's an old friend of theirs, evolving over centuries with barely a change. When fully extended and tied with tension ropes, this lattice becomes a circular base onto which everything else depends. Roof poles, felt layers, the stove, even the family dog's preferred nap spot. Each roof pole, called a uni, slots into a central ring known as the tuno. This circular ring at the top of the structure serves both practical and symbolic roles. More on that later. For now, you're watching how these poles, when connected to the walls and angled up into the ring, create an elegant cone. It's like stepping inside a giant woolen umbrella, except this one withstands blizzards. The real magic happens with the felt. Thick, dense, weather-resistant felt made from sheep's wool. Mongolian sheep are not the pampered fluffballs of suburban Instagram fame. These are tough, oily creatures whose wool naturally repels water and holds warmth like a furnace wrapped in fur. The wool is shorn, soaked, stomped, rolled, and beaten into giant blankets called Garian buries. And those blankets? They're not just slapped on like wallpaper. They are arranged, layered, and pinned with precision. Historians still argue whether the exact methods of felting, particularly the use of fermented mare's milk to bind fibers, originated with the Mongols or were adopted from earlier nomadic tribes. Either way, the result is the same. Thick, durable sheets that hold in heat and keep out the wind like ancient insulation. You run a hand along the inner wall. It's soft and warm. Not cozy in a cashmere way, but in a lived-in, sturdy sort of way. This felt has seen snowstorms. It has seen sun, rain, sand, and the occasional goat nibble. And it holds firm. One thing you might not notice at first, but definitely feel, is how these felt walls breathe. That's because they're not plastered tight. Small gaps remain, allowing moisture to escape and fresh air to trickle in. It's not high-tech ventilation. It's survival through slow airflow and years of trial and error. Otherwise, condensation would freeze on the interior, turning your woolen palace into an ice cave. The yurt you're in has an outer layer that's slightly grayer than the rest. It's made of older, refelted sheets, a clever strategy. Older felt, while a little less pretty, is actually more windproof. A young man, perhaps a cousin or nephew, explains with a grin that this particular yurt once stood through a storm that snapped a neighbor's roof ring clean off. Bad felt, he shrugs, as though it's common knowledge. There's a faint smell in the air now. Not unpleasant, but definitely wool forward. It's the kind of scent that says, lamb stew happened here, and don't touch the walls with your tea hands. As the stove gets stoked again, more dung discs slightly drier this time, you feel the temperature rise almost immediately. That's the secret. The yurt heats fast, and it holds that heat with stubborn resolve. The domed shape helps circulate warm air down to the ground. There's no dead air in the corners, because there are no corners, just smooth curvature and the occasional hanging robe or ladle. One woman adjusts a rope that runs along the outer felt. These ropes are crucial. They press the felt snug against the walls and keep everything tight. Some families decorate them with colored threads or charms. You spot a tiny bell tied to one near the smoke hole. It tinkles when the wind gets fussy, like a weather warning sung by fairies. Outside, the frost is thick. You step through the door briefly, only to be slapped by the wind like a freezing wet towel. The steppe stretches endlessly, a desert of snow and silence, broken only by grazing animals and the distant outline of another yurt cluster. You retreat quickly, ducking your head to re-enter. The doorway is low by design, not just to keep heat in, but to force humility. That's a common refrain here. If you can't bow to your own home, you're not ready for the rest of the world. Once inside, the warmth hits again, and it's oddly emotional. You begin to understand why these nomads prefer yurts over permanent houses. A wooden home doesn't travel with you. A yurt folds, packs, and rides along beside your family, your animals, your memories. Historians still debate whether the yurt influenced later military tents in Central Asia and Eastern Europe, or if it remained a strictly nomadic technology. Genghis Khan's own commanders slept in yurts, sometimes portable palaces with gold stitching and silk interiors, but the core concept never changed. Strong bones, soft skin, and a fire at the heart. You lie back again, letting the felt walls cradle you. The roof poles above look like sunbeams frozen in wood. The stove murmurs, and the wind, now slightly jealous, prowls around the outside like a dog denied entrance. You are warm, you are safe, and the woolly bones of this ancient house have done it again. By the time you stir again, the sun has fully risen, or at least brightened the sky to a hazy silver. Morning on the steppe isn't dramatic. It's slow, a kind of sideways glow that pushes shadows back into hiding rather than banishing them outright. Inside the yurt, the stove's gone out, but the warmth lingers, like a quiet promise from the night before. A few of the family members are already up, stirring porridge in a battered pot over rekindled flames. The smell is nutty, smoky, and just a little bit sour. Fermented grains mixed with something unidentifiable. Possibly barley, possibly hope. You sit up, brushing sheepskin fibers off your sleeves, and realize something. You slept well. Suspiciously well. For a floor mat and a dung-heated hut, this place is working some kind of magic. It's no accident. You're not the first outsider to marvel at the comfort of the jur. In fact, several 19th century Russian explorers, stoic men with beards and opinions, wrote with grudging admiration about how warm Mongolian dwellings remained even in sub-zero temperatures, while their own tents cracked with frost. One even declared the ger a superior human cocoon, which, let's be honest, is the highest praise possible for any building. The secret lies not just in the walls, or even the fire, but in the harmony of every element. Every material, every curve, every piece of rope serves multiple purposes. Take the floor, for instance. In many jurs, it's just the bare earth, stamped down and swept smooth. But it's also insulated with overlapping rugs, mats, and woven layers of reed and wool. They're not just for comfort. They trap warm air close to the body and block the chill from seeping in through the dirt. You shift your weight and feel it. The floor holds its heat longer than expected, like a baked clay oven that remembers the fire long after it's gone out. There's a quiet ritual unfolding now. One woman ladles hot tea, still salty, still milky, into a wooden bowl and hands it to you with a nod. The bowl is worn smooth from years of use. It's probably been passed through 3 generations of sleepy hands. You sip carefully, letting the warmth bloom across your chest. It's not coffee, but it works just as well. Behind you, a man ties back a section of the felt roof, allowing a sliver of sky to peer in through the smoke hole. Light streams down like a dusty beam in a cathedral. And for a moment, the yurt feels less like a hut and more like a temple of wool and fire and salty tea. Historians still argue whether the symbolic layout of the yurt, door facing south, fire at the center, men on the west side, women on the east, developed for practical reasons or spiritual ones. Either way, it's followed with a quiet seriousness. You don't put your feet toward the stove. You don't step over the threshold without a bow. You don't walk through the middle unless you want to annoy both the ancestors and the living. But what's more fascinating is how these rules vary subtly from tribe to tribe. In Western Mongolia, Kazakh yurts often feature colorful embroidery and raised wooden platforms inside. In the East, Buryat families might arrange their gurs with Buddhist shrines or shamanic tools depending on local beliefs. There's no single Mongolian yurt, just a shared idea shaped differently by region and rhythm. Someone pulls a chest open and reveals neatly folded felt layers. These are travel panels, extra insulation used during storms or particularly bitter nights. They're layered in specific orders, like a giant woolen lasagna. Some are stitched with family symbols or old protective charms. One is marked with a faded red spiral, possibly a sun symbol, or maybe just a warning that this one smells like last year's goat stew. You run a hand along one of these panels. It's thicker than you expect, nearly 1.5 inches, and dense enough to stop a breeze dead in its tracks. In ancient times, these layers were so effective that families could travel without losing interior heat for hours after the stove had gone out. Think about that. Crossing a frozen plain with your entire house folded on a cart, and it's still warmer than your apartment during a mild draft. Someone jokes that the only thing more stubborn than the wind here is a grandmother with a leaky roof panel. You laugh and immediately regret it. It's too early to be exhaling this hard in the cold. Outside, the landscape looks deceptively empty, but beyond the snow-dusted hills are herds of animals, other yurts, distant cousins, and enough history to fill a few empires. Genghis Khan may have commanded armies across continents, but his base camp was always a ring of yurts, mobile, adaptable, and ready to fold up in a moment's notice. The family begins untying ropes near the wall, preparing to open the yurt slightly for air circulation. This is part of the daily rhythm. Air out the walls, check the tension cords, maybe swap a felt panel if it's damp. You don't skip this step unless you want mold, and mold in these parts is basically considered treason. And yet, for all the tweaking, nothing in here ever feels chaotic. It's deliberate, intimate. There's a comfort in watching people tend to a home they can carry, in knowing that shelter doesn't have to mean permanence. It just has to mean warmth, protection, and the smell of soup when you didn't expect it. You lie back again, the steam of your tea curling up into the rafters. The stove lets out a contented sigh, and for a moment you forget where you are. You are not in a museum. You are not in a documentary. You are inside a living heartbeat of history. And it's warm. You stretch your legs under the blankets. Well, technically not blankets, more like a patchwork of rugs and pelts, and the warmth hasn't budged. Outside, the wind is still doing its best dramatic monologue across the steppe, but in here, it might as well be miles away. That's one of the first things you come to appreciate about the yurt. It doesn't fight nature. It listens to it, outsmarts it, and then shuts the door gently in its face. Now let's talk roofs. You remember the tuno, the round smoke hole at the top? That thing isn't just a chimney. It's the yurt's crown jewel, the compass, the eye to the heavens. And like any good eye, it opens and closes. Early Mongolian builders developed a sliding cover, often made of leather or heavy felt, that could be adjusted based on wind direction, temperature, or whether someone was burning soup again. Right now, one of the younger boys climbs a short stool and nudges the cover slightly open with a wooden pole. Light spills in like butter, drizzling through a colander. It's not just sunlight, it's the right kind of sunlight, warm and sleepy, perfect for wrapping around your shoulders like a shawl. Historians still debate whether the central smoke hole held sacred significance even before the rise of Tengriism, the sky-centered belief system that spread across Central Asia. But even today, some families toss the first pinch of food or tea into the fire beneath it, a humble offering to the sky spirits above. You don't say anything, but the idea of sky spirits accepting tea through a smoke hole? Kind of charming. The slanted roof poles, uni, are another masterpiece. Slender yet strong, they radiate outward from the central ring like wooden sunbeams. Each is tensioned just right. No nails, no screws, held in place by ropes and the sheer confidence of ancient geometry. The Mongols figured out centuries ago that a dome distributes heat evenly and resists wind pressure better than square buildings. That's why, even in screaming gales, the yurt stays grounded. The wind rolls over it like a wave over a turtle. You glance up at the poles. There's a bird feather tied to one, a child's drawing tucked behind another. Someone has carved a tiny pattern into one beam, just a swirl, no bigger than a thumbnail, but you can tell it means something. Maybe it's a signature. Maybe it's a love note. Or maybe someone just got bored on a stormy night with a sharp stick and a head full of thoughts. Meanwhile, the stove is chugging happily. Someone just added a fresh pat of dung, an act which you've come to realize is less gross and more necessary life skill. Dried dung burns clean, odorless, and hot. Plus, it's everywhere. Nature's gift to nomads. If you told a suburban homeowner that cow droppings could heat a room better than their designer fireplace, they'd laugh. Then they'd freeze. A soft humming starts near the stove. It's an older woman, possibly the matriarch. She stirs the pot slowly, the rhythm of her hand matching the tune. It's a lullaby, probably, or a work song passed down through generations. You don't recognize the words, but the feeling lands somewhere between a cradle and a campfire. The smell rising from the pot is intriguing. Fermented rice? Goat milk? Some form of ancient stew made to test your courage? You're offered a bowl without fanfare. You sip? It's not love at first taste, but it's warm and oddly comforting, like if oatmeal went camping and came back with stories. The walls, you now notice, have softened, not physically, but in atmosphere. With the sun climbing higher, the felt seems to glow from within, its wool fibers catching the light like forest moss. A toddler crawls by, stops to inspect your sock, then carries on with great determination. This is daily life here, not rustic performance, just living. And through it all, the yurt holds everyone like a gentle, wool-lined hug. One quirky bit of info. During the Soviet era, officials tried to settle Mongolian nomads into permanent housing, arguing that yurts were primitive. But after several winters of frozen pipes and crumbling concrete, many families quietly returned to their gurs. Turns out, ancient architecture had some wisdom built into it. You shift slightly and realize something strange. You haven't felt a single draft. Not one whisper of cold air sliding down your neck. No chilly toes. No mysterious breezes sneaking under the door. That's by design. The circular shape, the layered felt, the insulated floor, even the rope tension. It all works in concert to create a thermal seal. It's like living inside a thermos. But more than that, the yurt is built to adapt. During summer, felt layers are peeled back, openings widened, the roof uncovered. Air flows freely. In winter, everything cinches tight. Families might even add extra layers or build a windbreak outside. It's seasonal armor for your portable kingdom. Historians still can't agree whether the earliest yurts date to the Scythians, the Xiongnu, or even earlier nomadic tribes. But there's agreement on one thing. Few designs in human history have lasted this long with so little change. The yurt isn't an artifact. It's a masterpiece in motion. Outside, the wind is back to sulking. You can hear it grumble along the base of the structure, occasionally rattling a rope like a cat pawing at a doorknob. But inside? Inside, it's peaceful, timeless. A perfect circle of warmth and breath. You stretch out again, gaze up through the smoke hole, and imagine the stars slipping past in the night. Maybe later, you'll step outside, but not yet. For now, you stay right here, nestled in the curve of a structure that's outwitted empires, tamed winters, and kept centuries of wanderers just warm enough to dream. You're starting to feel a little spoiled, honestly. You've only been here a day, and already the yurt feels like a wool-lined spa that happens to serve goat milk and sing lullabies. It's hard to imagine this cozy cocoon being packed up, loaded onto a cart, and dragged across frozen ground. And yet, that's exactly what makes it brilliant. You sip the last of your tea, lukewarm now, but still strangely energizing, and look around. There's no clutter. Every object in here has a place and a purpose, sometimes three. A saddle hanging near the door is both tool and decoration. A wooden chest doubles as a seat. And above your head, those beautiful tension ropes? They're not just structural, they're also coat hooks, curtain rods, and occasionally laundry lines. This, you realize, is what makes the yurt feel alive. It breathes with its owners, flexes with the seasons, and always, always stays ready to move. That readiness is an art form. You learn that the average family can dismantle a yurt in under 2 hours. 2 hours. You can barely finish a grocery run in that time. But here, the poles are unhooked, the felt panels folded, the stove disassembled and packed away, all in a practiced sequence passed down like a favorite bedtime story. You picture yourself attempting this. In theory, you'd try to be helpful. In reality, you'd probably knock over the stove, step on a felt panel, and tangle yourself in the ropes like a very confused bird. And yet, the process is graceful. There's a rhythm to it. First, the felt walls are peeled off and shaken out. Then the roof poles are untied from the central ring, carefully, so the whole structure doesn't collapse like a disgruntled soufflé. The floor mats are rolled up, and the wooden lattice walls are folded accordion style. It all fits neatly onto a cart pulled by yak, camel, or even motorcycle, depending on the year. Historians still argue whether the speed of dismantling was purely practical or also symbolic, a reflection of impermanence in Mongolian philosophy or just good time management. But either way, it worked. When the seasons changed or pastures dried up, the yurt went with you. Home wasn't a place, it was a shape you could carry. You shift your weight and glance over at the door. It's a short frame, deliberately so. You have to duck to go through it. At first, this seems mildly inconvenient, until someone explains it's a built-in gesture of humility. You bow as you enter, even if you don't mean to. Kind of poetic, honestly. A house that makes you polite. The door itself is often ornately painted, bright orange, blue, or red, covered in swirling patterns that mean things you don't yet understand. Protection, maybe? Good fortune, or just style points. Some families even repaint them for major life events, weddings, births, a particularly successful goat harvest. A breeze sneaks in now, faint but curious. It carries the scent of earth, wool, and whatever stew is bubbling outside. You tug your blanket closer and feel the tension ropes above shift slightly. They're not just decorative. They hold the entire dome together using pure physics and ancient know-how. You learn that these ropes are often woven from horsehair or yak wool, tough, flexible, and stubborn, just like the animals they came from. Some are dyed with natural pigments, reds from madder root, yellows from onion skin. It's like someone tied a rainbow around the ceiling beams just to make you smile. Speaking of horses, you haven't seen one up close yet, but you've heard them all morning. Mongolian horses are small, sturdy, and deeply unimpressed by humans. They've been carrying people across this land for over 1,000 years and have zero time for your modern insecurities. If a Mongol warrior from the 1200s rode past right now, his horse would barely glance up. Just another Tuesday. There's a saying here, a Mongol without a horse is like a bird without wings. You get it now. Everything here is mobile. The yurt, the people, even the firewood, sometimes dragged in on sleds across the snow. Nothing is nailed down, but everything feels grounded. Quirky fact, in some parts of Mongolia, families will use old license plates or scrap metal to patch up yurt walls or create windbreaks. You've heard stories of felt panels stitched with discarded denim, or roof rings reinforced with bicycle spokes. It's not just resourceful, it's genius. A home that evolves with whatever's available. You glance up again at the roof poles. One of them creaks softly, and someone nudges it with a stick. Apparently, it's just settling into place, a nightly habit, like a cat adjusting its sleeping position. You smile. The yurt isn't just warm, it's expressive. It complains, sighs, shifts, and sometimes squeaks like it's telling secrets. Outside, snow starts to fall. Not a storm, just the light, flake-dusting kind that whispers rather than shouts. Someone moves to cover the smoke hole, but leaves it slightly cracked. The warm air inside swirls gently upward, meeting the cold like two dancers greeting each other mid-spin. You lie back again and close your eyes, just for a moment. The fabric walls absorb sound like moss. You can still hear life, tea being poured, boots thumping softly, a child giggling at something involving a sheep. But it all feels distant, like background music. There's a temptation to stay here forever, to let the yurt fold around you like a storybook. But you know better. This home moves. It follows the stars, the herds, the seasons. It's built not to root, but to roam. And that might be the warmest part of all. You wake, or maybe you never fully drifted off to the soft, rhythmic sound of brushing. Someone outside is sweeping snow off the felt walls with a bundle of dried grasses. You can hear it. Shh, like a lullaby meant just for the house. The inside of the yurt smells faintly of damp wool and wood smoke, a scent so gentle you half suspect it was handcrafted to lull people into naps. You stretch again, feet pressing against the padded mat beneath you. It's warm. Not hot, not stifling, just perfectly warm, like a hug from a particularly polite oven. You're starting to wonder, how is this possible? Outside, the wind is sharp enough to carve your cheekbones into Renaissance sculpture. Inside, it's a sleepy, stable haven. The secret, it turns out, isn't magic, it's layers. The yurt is basically the world's coziest onion. Its insulation is built in concentric shells, an inner lining of canvas or cotton, a thick layer of densely packed sheep's wool felt, and sometimes even a waterproof outer sheet, usually made of hide or modern tarp. Mongolians learned long ago that wool doesn't just insulate, it also breathes. Moisture escapes, but warmth stays trapped, like wearing a sweater that understands your feelings. Historians still argue whether this layering technique emerged from necessity or spiritual symbolism, each layer representing the elements or the boundaries between the earthly and the sacred. What's certain is that the effect works. Even when temperatures outside drop below -30 degrees Celsius, the inside of a well-kept yurt remains perfectly livable. You sit up and examine the felt walls more closely. Some are gray, some brown. A few bear faded symbols, swirls, knots, a stylized sheep that looks a bit smug. These aren't store-bought panels, they're hand-felted by the family. That means someone, probably several someones, spent days beating, soaking, rolling, and drying raw wool until it formed these heavy, wind-proof sheets. You picture it, a group of women kneeling in a field, rhythmically slapping wet wool with wooden paddles, chatting, singing, pausing only to shoo away curious goats. It's an ancient craft, passed down through generations. And it's deceptively technical. If the wool is too thin, it won't insulate. Too thick, and the structure buckles under the weight. Fun fact, nomads sometimes embed herbs or flowers into the wool during felting. Not for aesthetics, but for aroma. Lavender to calm, juniper to purify, wild thyme just because it smells like a mountain made of naps. You press your hand against the felt. It's not exactly soft, but it has give. Like the inside of a woolly tree. Heat radiates gently across its surface, the warmth distributed not by electricity or vents, but by sheer material memory. Wool, it turns out, remembers heat and holds onto it like an old friend who doesn't want to leave the party. And then there's the floor. You look down and realize you've been lying on a marvel of nomadic interior design. The base layer is often woven reed mats or wood planks for structure, but on top of that, more wool felt, several thick carpets, and sheepskins for warmth. In wealthier homes, you might even find imported rugs from Persia or India, signs of how far Mongolian trade once reached. The insulation underfoot traps rising heat from the stove and creates a thermal pocket, meaning your toes are warm even when the outside world is going full Arctic drama. You wiggle them just to be sure. Yep, still toasty. Outside, a goat bleats as if in mild protest to the weather. Someone chuckles. The walls muffle the sound, turning it into a soft punctuation mark. You can almost pretend you're underwater, or dreaming. One curious detail. Yurts are often positioned with their doors facing south. Why? For maximum sun exposure, yes, but also to keep out the prevailing north winds. There's something satisfyingly symbolic about a home that literally turns its back on the coldest part of the world. The stove glows red now, embers humming contentedly inside. Someone adds a handful of dried dung, followed by a sliver of wood. The heat pulses outwards, drawn into the walls and floor, like warmth sinking into memory foam. You watch steam curl from a metal kettle perched on top. It's not whistling, it's sighing. A sound that says, yes, life is cold, but tea exists, so we continue. Historians love pointing out how few architectural designs have changed so little over time. The Mongolian yurt hasn't evolved because it hasn't needed to. It was perfected centuries ago, then quietly outlived dynasties, empires, and several thousand years of architectural fads. You can build a glass skyscraper, sure, but can it be rolled up, strapped to a camel, and keep your feet warm at -40 degrees? Exactly. You hear someone tug a rope and feel the air shift subtly. The roof flap opens just a crack, releasing moisture, pulling in a breeze, then shutting again. It's all done with a long hooked pole, like a very polite fishing rod. Even now, in 2025, these structures are often adjusted manually, with the same grace and rhythm their builders used in 1205. And just as you begin to zone out into a kind of warm-felt daydream, someone unrolls a panel near the wall to reveal a small compartment, storage. Inside, more felt. Because, of course, if Mongolian yurts had a motto, it would probably be, when in doubt, add wool. Your eyes begin to flutter again, lulled by the softness, the warmth, the low murmurs of a world expertly designed for survival, mobility, and, surprisingly, rest. You lie back against the thick mat, the ceiling poles fanning out above you like the ribs of a sleeping giant, and think, this isn't just architecture. It's a lullaby you can live inside. Your eyes blink open, not from discomfort, but from curiosity. There's a smell wafting through the space now, familiar and yet entirely new. It's earthy, rich, maybe a bit smoky. Someone is preparing food, and in a yurt, that means the whole home becomes a kind of gentle stovetop symphony. You're not hungry per se, but there's something comforting about knowing a meal is on the way. Even the yurt seems to know it, its felt walls puffing slightly as warm air circulates, carrying the scent of boiling meat and steaming dairy. You glance toward the stove again, It's a cast iron belly with a stovepipe that snakes upward through the tuno, the central ring of the roof. The pipe is genius. Its metal radiates heat even as it draws smoke upward and out. You try to recall the last time you considered a chimney to be cozy, but this one absolutely is. It's humming like an old cat. You shuffle closer and spot what's inside the pot, a bubbling brew of meat, onions, and dumplings. This is booze, a staple in Mongolian cuisine. Steamed meat pockets that are incredibly basic in ingredients and surprisingly complex in taste. Lamb is the star, often with a whisper of cumin or onion, depending on the cook's preference or what they had on hand that day. Historians still argue whether Mongolian cuisine is austere by nature or by necessity. It doesn't rely on fancy sauces or rare spices. It's utilitarian, hearty, and shaped by an environment where plants often take the winter off. And then some. While you watch, someone opens a side pouch hanging from the wall and pulls out a small sack of dried curds. Arul. These are crunchy, tangy snacks made from fermented milk, pressed and dried until they become jaw-testing little nuggets of calcium. You nibble one. It tastes like lemony chalk in the best way possible. But here's the twist. Dairy in Mongolian culture isn't just a food group. It's practically a religion. Horses, goats, yaks, sheep, all their milk is harvested and fermented into dozens of variations. There's erog, fermented mare's milk that's mildly alcoholic and wildly refreshing if you're used to it. You're not. Yet. Then there's sute tsai, a salty milk tea made from black tea, milk, salt, and sometimes a knob of butter. It's not sweet and the first sip might confuse your tongue, but your body? Your body sighs with relief like it's being rehydrated and hugged at the same time. Someone hands you a warm bowl of it, and you hold it carefully, grateful for the heat radiating into your palms. The taste is surprising. Like if a chai latte got lost in the steps and came back stronger. The stove crackles, and your seatmate, an older herder with a wind-mapped face and a thick woolen coat, nods at your bowl and chuckles. You've passed some unspoken test. Congratulations, you are now 2% nomadic. The rest of the family is bustling around the interior now, and you realize something important. The yurt is also a kitchen. There's no room to go cook in. Everything happens in the same space, efficiently and calmly. The left side of the yurt is traditionally the woman's domain, pots, buckets, and firewood organized with graceful logic. The right side, men's tools, saddles, and possibly a rather dramatic-looking fur hat. The stove sits squarely in the center, not just for heat, but for symbolism. Fire is sacred in Mongolian culture. You never step over it. You never extinguish it with water. You treat it like an elderly relative with stories to tell, gently and with full attention. One of the family members gently scoots a pot toward the edge of the flame, where it will simmer slowly all afternoon. You watch steam rise and spiral into the high space of the yurt, where it disappears into the dome. The air up there is cooler, a miniature atmosphere inside your circular world. The dome itself, the tuno, is a masterpiece. A round skylight ring supported by bent wooden ribs called uni. Those ribs descend down and slot into the kana, the lattice wall frame. The whole system is tensioned with ropes made of horsehair or camel hide. No nails, no glue, just pressure, tradition, and some serious architectural flexing. And that little ring at the top? It does more than vent smoke. It brings in light. Sunbeams stream through, illuminating the central stove like a spotlight on a quiet theater stage. Birds occasionally flutter past the opening, briefly eclipsing the sky before swooping back into their own cold freedom. You sit back and sip more tea, letting the scene wash over you. Mongolian meals aren't rushed. They unfold slowly, in rhythm with the land, the fire, and the felt. You're not dining, you're dwelling. Here's a quirky detail you might enjoy. In some regions, people would drop a sliver of hot fat onto a metal plate to test the fire's mood. If it sizzled aggressively, the weather was about to shift. If it merely sighed, all was calm. It's both superstition and science, or maybe something in between. You glance around and realize, everything you've experienced so far, the warmth, the layering, the structure, the tea, centers around one principle, harmony, not just with nature, but with each other. The yurt is social architecture. It brings everyone close, gently insisting, share the heat, the food, the space, the silence. And so you do. The warmth fills your stomach. The tea soothes your throat. Someone tosses a log onto the fire with the care of a lullaby. You lean back again against the curved wall and let the rhythm of the fire and the soft clatter of cooking carry you just a little further into calm. You feel a soft shift as the afternoon wanes. Outside, the light dims slowly, folding the vast steppe into cooler shades of blue and gray. Inside the yurt, the fire's glow deepens, casting long, gentle shadows that dance quietly across the felt walls like sleepy silhouettes. The steady hum of life continues around you, calm and unhurried. Your gaze drifts upwards to the tonneau, that iconic circular opening crowning the yurt's roof. It's not just a functional smoke vent, but a symbolic connection between earth and sky, a portal where stories of the cosmos whisper in the crackling of fire and the rustling of wool. Some elders say it's a window to the heavens, a place where spirits watch kindly over the family. You lean back, imagining constellations arranged like a woolly tapestry overhead. The tonneau is supported by a dozen or so wooden poles called uni, each carefully bent and lashed into place with rawhide or horsehair ropes. You run your fingers along the smooth, varnished wood, marveling at how something so simple can hold such weight, both physical and cultural. It's an elegant suspension bridge between practical engineering and artistic expression. Historians still argue whether the tonneau's design was inspired by natural forms like the ribs of animals or more abstract celestial symbolism. Either way, it's a masterpiece of efficient design. The circular shape evenly distributes stress, making the whole structure flexible enough to withstand fierce winds or even minor earthquakes without complaint. It's architecture in perfect balance. You notice the subtle way the tonneau can be adjusted. By pulling or releasing the ropes, the family can open or close the smoke hole just enough to regulate airflow, letting the yurt breathe like a living thing. It's an ancient ventilation system, remarkably sustainable. No need for fans or air conditioning, just wood, wool, and a bit of know-how passed down like a secret lullaby. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the felt like distant applause. Inside, the warm air gathers in gentle eddies, curling lazily around the stove's iron belly. The family continues their quiet routine. One mends a wool cloak, another sharpens a wooden spindle, and somewhere a child hums a simple tune, the kind that feels like it was sung first under these very skies 1,000 years ago. You think about the yurt's floor now, layered with thick felt rugs and animal pelts, creating a soft mosaic of texture beneath your feet. Every surface invites touch. The rough woven tapestry on the wall, the smooth pottery resting near the stove, the cool metal of a tea bowl. It's a tactile symphony, each element chosen for comfort and endurance. And then, a small unexpected detail. You spot a tiny leather pouch tucked behind a wall panel. Inside, dried wildflowers, juniper and wormwood perhaps, pressed gently to keep the yurt smelling fresh and to ward off insects. A subtle touch, but one that speaks volumes about the care woven into daily life here. You lean your head back against the felt wall and close your eyes, letting your thoughts drift like smoke rising through the tonneau. The warmth, the gentle smells, the muted sounds, they form a cocoon of serenity that wraps around you tighter than any blanket. One of the elders nearby tells a story, softly, almost under their breath, about how the first yurts were said to be gifts from Tengri, the sky god, who blessed the nomads with shelter that moves with the wind. You're not sure if it's history or myth, but here in this softly glowing circle, the lines between the two blur into a comforting haze. You feel the pulse of centuries beneath you. The lives, the migrations, the cold winters, the fierce sunrises, all folded into this delicate construction. The yurt isn't just a home, it's a vessel of memory, a cradle for stories told in the flicker of firelight and the quiet rustle of wool. Your breathing slows. The fire dims to a gentle glow. Outside, the wind whispers lullabies through the grass. Inside, you sink deeper into warmth, held by the architecture of tradition. As twilight deepens, a coolness begins to seep in, nudging the yurt to shift from the lively buzz of afternoon chores to the quieter, more reflective mood of evening. You sit back on a soft felt cushion, the heat from the stove still radiating gently, a warm heartbeat in the center of this circular world. Outside, the endless steppe stretches into the dimming horizon, a vast silence broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird or the soft rustle of dry grass in the breeze. The nomads know these sounds well. They are nature's metronome, marking time without fuss or hurry. Inside the yurt, the soft murmur of conversation fades into a calm hush. The family settles down, and the ritual of preparing for sleep begins. You watch as wool blankets, thick and fragrant with lanolin, are spread over the rugs. These blankets aren't just for warmth, they are a shield against the chill that night brings to the open plains. You're reminded how clever the layering system of the yurt truly is. The felt walls, thick and dense, trap heat, while the low wooden lattice keeps the structure sturdy yet flexible. The roof's conical shape encourages snow and rain to slide off quickly, sparing the inhabitants from unwanted moisture creeping inside. It's a design honed over centuries, a quiet triumph of human ingenuity blending with nature's rhythms. There's a gentleness to this place, a feeling that the yurt breathes with its occupants, adjusting to their needs almost instinctively. You wonder if you could ever learn to read its subtle signals. The way a draft moves, the slight creak of a joint, the faint change in scent that might mean a storm is coming. Historians still argue whether the precise origin of yurts lies in Central Asia alone, or if similar designs arose independently in other nomadic cultures. What's clear is that this home on wheels has endured because it answers fundamental human needs: shelter, warmth, community. You lean your head back and think about the nightly rituals that must have played out here for generations. Stories told by firelight, songs hummed softly to coax sleep, children nestled close to parents, their small breaths mingling with the smoke and warmth. A small, almost humorous detail catches your eye: the presence of tiny felt pouches hanging from the ceiling beams, filled with herbs to keep away moths and other unwelcome guests. It's a reminder that even in such a simple home, there's room for a little everyday magic. Someone offers you a bowl of warm milk, infused with a pinch of salt, the traditional sute tsai, and you accept, feeling the heat seep into your hands and then down your throat. It's comforting, a quiet anchor in the fading light. Outside, the stars begin to prick the darkening sky, twinkling through the tonneau. You imagine the constellations named by the nomads long ago, their shapes etched into stories passed from parent to child. Your eyelids grow heavier. The fire's crackle slows, blending with the gentle breathing of the yurt's inhabitants. This is the lullaby of the steppe, the rhythm of a world held in balance. You settle deeper into the soft cushions, the warmth wrapping around you like a familiar shawl. The yurt's quiet strength enfolds you, a promise that no matter how wild the outside world may be, here you are safe, warm, and slowly drifting toward rest. The yurt grows quieter as night settles firmly. You notice how even the fire's crackle softens, like it's exhaling its last warm breath before rest. The gentle hush inside makes every small sound more vivid: the faint scrape of felt against wood, the distant low murmur of animals outside, and the rhythmic ticking of a simple wooden clock placed near the entrance, its steady beat almost hypnotic. You realize the yurt is more than a shelter. It's a living companion to its occupants, a softly pulsing heart that beats in time with the rhythms of nomadic life. Its curved walls curve around you like a gentle embrace, inviting you to relax fully, let your body soften, and surrender to the soothing silence. You think back to how the felt is made, a process both laborious and intimate. First, wool is gathered from sheep or goats, then cleaned and carded. It's rolled and pressed, compressed by feet and hands, and soaked repeatedly in water. The wool fibers bind tightly, creating a dense fabric that's windproof, insulating, and surprisingly breathable. It's a tactile magic, made possible only by patience and tradition. You pick up a small piece of felt nearby and run your fingers over it. It's rough, yet oddly comforting, like the texture of a well-loved blanket that has absorbed generations of stories and scents. In a way, this felt is the unsung hero of the yurt, the quiet guardian that keeps the cold at bay during those long, unforgiving winters. Historians still argue whether the yurt's portability influenced the Mongols' military prowess, or if their nomadic lifestyle simply necessitated this architectural innovation. Probably both, you think, as you imagine a herder swiftly folding and rolling his yurt's components to keep pace with the moving herds. You glance upward at the ropes holding the roof poles in place. The uni. These are not random cords, but carefully braided horsehair or camel hide, strong enough to support the entire structure's weight and flexible enough to allow slight movements when the wind picks up. You realize each knot, each twist of rope is a testament to centuries of craftsmanship passed down like a whispered secret. Suddenly, the gentle tap-tap of hooves approaches. A herder leads a small horse inside, carefully settling it next to the yurt's entrance. You watch as the animal snorts softly and nuzzles a bundle of dried grass. This moment feels intimate between humans, animals, and their shared environment. Here's a quirky fact. Some yurts include a tiny door just for animals, so they can come and go without disturbing the living space. It's a practical touch that shows how deeply interwoven animal care is with daily life. You lean back again, feeling the warmth of the fire spreading slowly through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of burning juniper wood, a scent believed to purify the space and keep away bad spirits. This is tradition layered in scent, sight, and sound, creating a multisensory sanctuary. As your thoughts drift like smoke spiraling out through the tunnel, you notice how the yurt's circular shape promotes a sense of equality and togetherness. There are no corners, no isolated spaces, just an open, inclusive circle, inviting all to gather, share, and rest. The steady warmth and rhythmic quiet lull your mind, coaxing it gently towards sleep. You realize that the yurt is not just a place to survive the cold tundra, but a refuge to nurture connection, calm, and continuity. You close your eyes, feeling the yurt's embrace, the lingering heat on your skin, and the soft, steady cadence of the night around you. Night deepens, and the world outside the yurt feels vast and still, a shadowed expanse where only the faintest outlines of hills and distant trees are visible beneath the glittering canopy of stars. Inside, the warmth from the stove lingers, though now it's more gentle, like the last notes of a lullaby fading softly into silence. You run your fingers over the lattice walls, tracing the delicate woodwork. It's amazing how something so seemingly fragile holds the entire structure up. Each wooden slat fits perfectly with the next, forming a flexible grid that can expand or contract as the yurt is assembled or packed away. This lattice, called the khana, is the skeleton of the yurt, and without it, the whole delicate balance would collapse. There's a quiet artistry to the khana, where craftsmen carve small patterns, sometimes geometric, sometimes floral, into the wood, personalizing each piece and infusing the yurt with a touch of individuality. It's a reminder that even the most functional parts of the yurt carry meaning and pride. You think about the layers that protect you from the elements. Over the lattice, the felt provides insulation, but there's also a canvas or leather outer cover treated to repel rain and wind. This outer layer is carefully secured with ropes and stakes, ensuring the yurt stays snug and weatherproof, no matter how fierce the storms outside. Historians still argue whether the original yurts were primarily made from animal hides or felt. The consensus leans toward felt becoming dominant due to its superior insulating properties. But it's fascinating to consider how these materials shaped nomadic lifestyles. A small wooden chest rests against one wall. You open it and find a collection of everyday objects: wooden bowls, a small iron knife, a bundle of sewing needles, and a tiny clay pot filled with spices. These simple tools reflect a life both humble and resourceful, where every item has multiple uses and stories. You pick up a wooden comb carved from yak horn. Its smooth teeth remind you that grooming was a daily ritual, not just a practical necessity, but a quiet moment of self-care amidst the rugged environment. Some yurts even include small shelves where families keep treasured items, amulets for protection, small statues, or photographs of distant relatives. It's a personal touch that brings a sense of home and continuity. Outside, a wolf howls softly, a distant sound that adds to the atmosphere without startling. Inside, you feel the safety of the yurt's circle, a fortress of warmth and familiarity. You catch a faint whiff of fermented mare's milk, arog, a traditional beverage often shared during gatherings. It's tangy, slightly fizzy, and oddly comforting. Sharing a bowl of arog is more than just drinking. It's a symbol of hospitality, friendship, and trust. You settle back against the cushions, listening to the steady breath of the yurt and its inhabitants. The night stretches on, gentle and unhurried, inviting you to relax deeper into this timeless embrace. Your eyelids grow heavy, the warmth lulls you closer to sleep, and the yurt stands steady, cradling you through the long, star-filled night. The deep night feels almost sacred now, with only the soft glow of embers flickering faintly through the stove's small door. You sink further into the layered woolen blankets, feeling the comforting weight as the yurt gently hums with the quiet energy of its occupants, breathing in unison. You remember the stories whispered to children before sleep, legends woven into the fabric of nomadic life as tightly as the felt on these walls. Tales of celestial wolves that guard the steppe, spirits of the wind that shape the dunes, and ancestors who ride the constellations overhead. These stories, while charming, also serve a practical purpose, teaching respect for nature's power and the importance of community. It's curious how such oral traditions have survived alongside the physical structure of the yurt itself. In many ways, the yurt is a vessel not only for warmth and shelter, but also for culture and identity, holding both body and soul in its gentle curve. You feel the smooth surface of the wooden floor beneath your fingers, the warmth radiating through the layers of felt rugs. This floor isn't just a platform, it's a carefully arranged mosaic of skins and woven mats, each chosen for its durability and comfort. Some are brightly dyed, their colors soft but vivid in the firelight, while others are muted earth tones, blending seamlessly with the natural landscape outside. There's an almost meditative rhythm in the way a family prepares their yurt for winter, a dance of adding layers, reinforcing walls, and tending fires. You imagine the preparation as a ceremony, a shared act of love and care that binds the family tighter than words. Historians still debate how much of the yurt's design spread through trade routes versus independent invention. It's clear, though, that similar homes appear across vast regions, from Mongolia to the steppes of Central Asia, each adapted to local climates and customs. You reach for a small wooden bowl filled with dried berries and nuts, the nomad's version of a midnight snack. The flavors are subtle, a little sweet and earthy, grounding you further in this timeless moment. Outside, the wind stirs the outer canvas, making it ripple softly like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Inside, the yurt's circle feels like a sanctuary from the endless expanse, a perfect balance of protection and openness. The gentle aroma of burning sage mixes with the lingering scent of smoked meat stored nearby, a reminder of the long winters ahead and the careful planning required to survive them. As your breathing slows and your muscles relax, you become aware of the delicate interplay between human hands and natural materials that make this home possible. The yurt is more than wood, felt, and rope. It's an intimate conversation between people and the land. With a quiet smile, you let the softness of the night carry you forward. The yurt's gentle embrace, a steady anchor in the swirling vastness beyond its walls. The night deepens further, and the world outside your felt cocoon grows quieter still. You hear the faint patter of distant hooves, perhaps a herder returning from a late watch or a curious horse wandering near the camp. The sounds blend softly with the rhythmic crackle of the fire, which now emits a gentle, almost hypnotic glow. The yurt feels alive with history, a vessel that has cradled countless generations as they lived, loved, and dreamed beneath the same stars you see above. Its circular walls seem to pulse with the heartbeat of the steppe, steady and timeless. You shift slightly, noticing how the warmth from the stove lingers on your skin like a soft whisper, wrapping you in comfort. The stove itself, often a small metal or clay structure, is a marvel of portable ingenuity, easy to disassemble and light with minimal fuel, yet capable of keeping a whole family cozy during bitter nights. One fascinating detail you recall is that some yurts use a double-layer stovepipe system designed to channel smoke outside without losing too much heat, a clever balance of safety and efficiency. These little innovations make the difference between mere survival and genuine comfort on the open plains. You glance around, noting the array of household items arranged thoughtfully along the walls. A woven basket filled with freshly dried herbs, a small leather pouch for storing medicinal roots, and a low wooden stool carved from the branch of a hardy tree. Each piece tells a story of utility, adaptation, and the intimate relationship between nomads and their environment. Historians still debate how much the Mongol expansion influenced the spread of yurt designs across Eurasia, but it's clear that this structure symbolizes far more than shelter. It's a cultural icon, a symbol of freedom, resilience, and a unique way of life that thrived in harmony with nature. Your eyes drift toward the Tundra once again. The smoke hole is perfectly centered, framed by wooden poles, and often decorated with symbolic motifs representing the cosmos and the interconnectedness of all life. Through this opening, you imagine seeing the vast sky, the stars, and perhaps the aurora dancing faintly on the horizon during the coldest nights. You can almost smell the juniper and dried herbs placed near the fire to cleanse the air and invite positive energy, a fragrant ritual performed long before bedtime. These scents mingle with the earthy aroma of the felt walls, creating a unique sensory tapestry. A soft murmur from a nearby sleeper reminds you that even in this vast wilderness, companionship is never far away. The yurt is a circle of safety, its roundness fostering closeness and warmth. As your breathing slows and your thoughts settle, you realize the yurt's design not only defies the harsh elements, but also invites tranquility. A slow, peaceful existence that seems almost otherworldly in today's fast-paced world. With that comforting thought, your body relaxes fully into the night's embrace, the steady warmth a gentle lullaby that carries you closer to sleep. The embers glow faintly now, a soft pulse fading into the quiet of the early morning. The yurt has become a cocoon, a delicate balance of warmth and breathability that has protected its occupants through the coldest hours. You stretch slightly, feeling the gentle give of the felt beneath your hand. A reminder that this shelter, while sturdy, moves with the wind, bending without breaking. You think about the yurt's portability, its ability to be dismantled and reassembled within hours, a necessity for the nomads who follow the seasons and their herds. This mobility wasn't just practical, it was a philosophy, embracing impermanence and the constant flow of life. The wooden frame, layered with felt and tied together with sturdy ropes, creates a flexible yet strong structure. The eyrie, the doorframe, often ornately carved and painted, marks the boundary between the wild outdoors and the cozy interior. You imagine standing in that doorway, the cold air brushing your cheeks, then stepping inside to be enveloped by warmth and safety. Historians still argue about the earliest origins of the yurt, with some tracing its design back to Turkic peoples thousands of years ago, while others suggest independent development across various steppe cultures. Regardless, it's clear that the yurt is a masterclass in functional design, meeting cultural expression. Your fingers brush against a bundle of dried flowers hanging near the door: lavender, sage, and wild thyme. These herbs were often used not just for fragrance, but also believed to ward off illness and invite good dreams. Such subtle rituals add layers of comfort to the home. You hear the faint clink of a metal cup being set down nearby, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, moments of simple pleasure persist. Sharing tea or fermented milk isn't just nourishment, but a ceremony, a pause in the day's relentless rhythm. Outside, the first pale light of dawn begins to creep over the horizon, softening the shadows and casting a gentle glow on the canvas walls. You notice how the yurt seems to glow from within, a beacon of life in the vast open steppe. The design of the yurt encourages a communal way of living. There are no corners, no hidden spaces, just a shared, circular room where stories, meals, and dreams intertwine. This circle fosters connection, reminding you that despite the vastness of the land, people are never truly alone. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the steady pulse of life within the yurt, the warmth, the scents, the sounds, all merging into a serene symphony that soothes the soul. The yurt stands as a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring bond between people and their environment, a shelter not just from cold, but from isolation. The soft light of morning has fully settled in, gently filtering through the tonneau, casting delicate patterns on the felt walls. The yurt feels both timeless and alive, an enduring refuge that has witnessed centuries of quiet moments just like this one. You take a slow breath, savoring the last vestiges of warmth before the day begins. Outside, the world stirs. Hooves clatter on frozen ground, distant voices rise and fall like gentle waves. Inside, the yurt holds its peace, a calm center in the ever-shifting rhythm of nomadic life. You reach over to the small fire stove, stirring the embers to coax a few more sparks to life. The smoke curls upward through the roof opening, mingling with the crisp morning air. It's a simple act, but one loaded with meaning, a ritual connecting you to countless generations who lived by these same motions. You remember the intricate symbolism woven into the yurt's design, the round shape representing the eternal cycle of life, the smoke hole as a gateway to the heavens, and the felt walls that embrace both body and spirit. This is no mere shelter. It's a living metaphor for balance and harmony. Historians still debate whether the spread of yurt technology was primarily due to migration or cultural exchange along the Silk Road, but what's undeniable is its profound influence on the identity of nomadic peoples across Eurasia. You glance around at the modest possessions arranged with care: a wooden ladle, a carved bowl, a bundle of precious textiles, each a testament to a life attuned to nature's pace, where less is truly more. Outside, the rising sun bathes the steppe in a soft golden light. The yurt's felt walls glow warmly, inviting you to savor this moment of quiet renewal. You feel the steady heartbeat of the land beneath you, the ancient pulse that has shaped human life here for millennia. And in this moment, cocooned in wool and wood, you are part of that ongoing story. As your eyes grow heavy once more, you let the gentle warmth and calm wash over you, a soothing balm that lulls you deeper into rest. Now, as you drift away, the yurt stands quietly, steadfast, humble, and eternally welcoming. The night's journey has brought you into the intimate world of Mongolian yurts, spaces where practicality and poetry intertwine. These humble structures have sheltered generations through biting winds and star-strewn skies, carrying the wisdom of adaptation and community. As you breathe deeply, imagine the soft touch of felt against your skin, the faint scent of juniper smoke, and the gentle murmur of kin around a glowing hearth. Let these images fade slowly, like a whisper on the wind, settling you into a peaceful slumber. Rest well, cradled by the warm embrace of history and the gentle rhythm of the steppe. Sweet dreams.